Hello everybody and welcome to the Artful Dreamer Studio. My name is Carrie and this week I want to talk all about textures. A few months ago I was in my backyard and I was looking at all the flowers and I noticed our painted wood fence and the barrel my daughters tried to make a fairy garden in. It's pretty old and almost dilapidated. And specifically the dirt. There was dirt everywhere. And I thought this would be such a cool watercolor study. So I took a picture and I'm gonna paint that this week. So come along with me, let's paint. So here we go. As you guys can tell, I actually started to paint before I pressed record. It's just a light layer of sap green on the greenery. And I laid down my first base color in the dirt. It is going to be just some sepia, pretty watered down. And then I'm just splattering some sepia into the wet paint. Here we go, we're just getting these shadows put down in the dirt. So we're gonna make it look as if the barrel is casting a shadow because the sun is shining from the upper right. The same with the garden hoe. We're gonna put down a light layer for the shadow, and then we're gonna put some shadows down on some of the sticks in the dirt just to give them a more realistic appearance. Now we're gonna go ahead and sponge on some yellow ochre and raw sienna mix. This just gives more life to the dirt, gives it a little bit more texture. This was actually a lot of fun. Suppose I forgot to mention that I used my Faber-Castell Polychromos pencil to just put down a little bit of green where there would be some green in the dirt. Nothing too fancy. And now for more sponging, just a darker mix. I probably dropped in some sepia, yellow ochre, raw sienna. Can you tell I enjoy this? So here you see me dropping in some water and then some darker sap green mixture. I just wanted to give a little bit more texture to the greenery in the background, but I didn't want it to stand out too much, so that's why it's all going in wet and wet. I use my fingernails and probably the back of a paintbrush to score out some sticks just to give it a little bit of depth. Okay, it's time to work on the wood fence. So the wood fence is painted, so I decided to use Titan Buff from Da Vinci because it's semi-opaque and it gives it that painted appearance. So I just dropped a real thin layer of that on there. And then I used Payne's Gray to go ahead and add some shadows to the fence just to make sure I could give it that added bit of realism. Okay, time to bust out my trusty rubber remover thing. I don't know what it's really called, but it removes the liquid masking fluid. And then I'm going to lay down a darker version of our base color, just sticking with the same colors that we laid down the first time. Okay, just dropping down some more Payne's Gray and a little bit of sepia mixed in, and I just wanted to get the occlusion shadows a little bit darker. Now we can get to work on the barrel. I absolutely love the work on the barrel. I'm just laying down a nice thin layer of water, and I'm going to drop in some warmer tones on the right where the sun is shining. So some yellow ochre, raw sienna, and then some cooler tones on the left. So lightly watered down sepia mixed with a little Payne's Gray. Give it some variation in tone from right to left. When I removed the masking tape, I went ahead and just put down a layer of liquid frisket to the metal parts of the barrel. I wanted to be able to work on the wood texture without any of that paint getting onto the barrel metal texture. So right now I am just dropping in more color to get started on trying to make some of the texture for the wood. You'll see that I'm actually starting to lift some of the texture, lift some of the paint in some areas, and drop deeper paint in other areas. This will help give the appearance that this is some weathered wood. So I am taking my fan brush and just putting some very, very thin texture marks on the barrel. It's very helpful to giving that wood texture some realism. And now, because this is old cracked wood, I want to make sure that I lay down deeper tones for the seams so we can see where the seams are and where there are cracks in the wood. So you make it even deeper and darker where you want to show cracks. As you can see, I put a lot of cracks at the bottom because the barrel in my backyard has a lot of cracks, but also it gives it a more weathered appearance. You can't forget the shadow on the side of the barrel from the garden hoe. The reference didn't have it, but it's my painting and I can do what I want. So now I'm going to just remove the masking fluid that was on the inside of the barrel that showed some of the grasses and weeds, frankly, that was on the inside of the barrel And then I'm just going to lay down some different concentrations of sap green to create the greenery. I mixed a little yellow ochre in at times just to give it a little bit more of a yellow appearance as well. Now for the metal. This is some watered down Payne's Gray, and I am just laying it down for the metal. I don't care if it is a very flat and seamless wash. I don't mind if it's a little bit wonky, just because this metal is old and weathered like the barrel, and there are some signs of discoloration on it, so I wanted to make sure I got that. So you'll see me lifting and darkening sections of the metal to give it a little bit more realism. So for the garden hoe, this was a relatively simple mix of Payne's Gray as well. So I put some water down, and then I dropped in a pretty light mixture of Payne's Gray, and then I built it up with a little bit more pigment at a time, just to make sure I was getting the right color to represent metal on the garden hoe. Now for some more fun, I get to pull out my craft knife and lift the very top layer of paint on the metal to pull out some of the paper white, which we'll use for the highlights on our metal. That is the most beautiful part of watercolor, is that white paper shining through. Wow guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. As you can see, painting watercolor textures can be really fun. It can get a little sloppy and all over the place, but that's what makes watercolor so exciting. As always, if you know anyone that would enjoy this content, please share, like, and subscribe. Thank you. I will see you next time.